last event of this year. Last event of the ESPN deal. Or no, the last pay-per-view of the ESPN deal, man. We got UFC 323. Merab Dvalishvili rematching Peter Yan. And then we also got Pantoja versus Van. We got Henry Cejudo versus Talbot. Moreno versus Tyro. We got all these banger fights. And you know what? As a hardcore fan who appreciates the lighter skill, who appreciates the lighter weight divisions way more than the heavier ones, I'm gonna be honest with you. This is the best card for me. I really love this card. It's so stacked. There's so many good fights. The prelims for this fight alone are just insanely good, and I can't wait. I mean, I have a lot of good picks here. I don't want to say that because last pay per view I didn't do well at all, but you know, I really do think that I really do like this event, man. This is gonna be good. The fights are all gonna be good. I don't think there's gonna be any boring fights on here like the Islam versus JDM fight. There's not gonna be any of that. Marab and Pantoja, they're the entertaining grapplers, not Islam and Kamza and Shevchenko. You're not gonna see boring smudge fest decisions, bro. You're not gonna see hug fests. You're gonna see real entertaining grappling. I can't wait. Anyways, let's start with the first fight on the card. We got Muhammad Naimov taking on Myron Santos. I'm going to go with Myron Santos. I do think that Myron Santos is the cleaner striker. I really do like how Myron Santos has looked in the UFC. He has the knockout win over Con Olfley. And to be honest with you, I didn't think Naimov's performance against Con Olfley was that dominant as it was like a 29-28 kind of like grappling decision. He had the same thing against Bogdan Grad. And I'm not really impressed with Muhammad Naimov's striking. I do think that Myron Santos, he's a surgeon on the feet. He had a very dominant win against Sodiq Yusuff, and Sodiq Yusuff is a pretty good fighter, and it was at 155. Myron Santos wasn't in the best shape for that fight, and he still looked pretty good against Sodiq Yusuff, who is a pretty neat striker. And I would say that beating a guy like Sodiq Yusuff is better than what Naimov has done. Naimov, he has I would say he has some pretty decent wins, but I honestly thought he lost to Nathaniel Wood. He was fouling a lot in that fight, and I just think Con Ofley kind of a uneventful decision. Same with Bogdan Grad. Eric Silva, he got TKO, but it was like a leg injury. Then he lost to Felipe Lima by submission. I don't think Naimov's grappling is gonna be that big of a problem for Santos. Santos does have some pretty good grappling defense. And granted, a lot of people were talking about that Francis Marshall fight. And to be honest with you, people were saying it's a robbery. I honestly did think that Santos won that fight. When I watched it live, I had it scored for Santos. And Santos has a very good KO against Con Ofley, dominant decision against Sodiq Yusuff. I really like Myron Santos here. He is the minus 250 favorite, man. And for good reason. I think he's just a better striker. I see this being where Santos just picks apart Naimov on the feet, kind of like an Anderson Silva-esque thing. A lot of people compare him to Anderson Silva, and I think that's for good reason. He is a really good surgical striker. So I'm going to go with Santos. I'm going to go with Santos by 30-27 decision. I think it's going to be a pretty clear, dominant decision for Santos. Naimov's tough, but I just don't think that his striking is good enough to be able to counteract Santos's. Next, we got Mansour Abdul Malik versus Antonio Trocoli, and I'm gonna be honest with you. Abdul Malik is winning this. There is really no debate for that. Trocoli sucks, and he's kind of like a big punching bag. He got submitted by Trayshawn Gore was it like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, or I think it was like a year ago or something. But yeah, submission lost to Trayshawn Gore, who's trash. He got KO'd by Charles Magomedov, and he was doing fine against Charles Magomedov before. But I think the problem with Trocoli is that he is pretty much a guy he's not really active on the feet. He kind of just walks forward. He has some good physicality, and he is pretty athletic. But I mean, Abdul Malik is the minus 1200 favorite. He is the biggest favorite on this card for good reason. Abdul Malik has been getting finishes in every single one of his fights. He technically TKO'd Cody Brundage, and he was on his way to win that fight. He won it by technical decision, and then it was turned into a draw, and it's Cody Brundage. Cody Brundage just has one of those fights where it just be some random shit, but he should be 9-0 right now, not 8-0-1, and I'm gonna go Amansa Abdul Malik. I don't think this is gonna be as easy as a KO as a lot of people are saying it is. A lot of people I see are choosing round one KO. I'm gonna go with Abdul Malik by late round two KO. I could see a round 3-1. Tricoli is pretty tough, but he does have a breaking point where at some point he is just going to get finished. And Shar Magomedov is a very good striker, and he has really sneaky power, and he struggled to finish Tricoli in the first round. So I think it's going to be a hard fought. It's going to be a hard fought performance, but I see Abdul Malik getting the KO in the second round. A lot of people are going to say, "Oh, he's kind of trash. Oh, he didn't get it in the first round." But Abdul Malik is just not that guy. He's kind of like a grind and find a finish later in the rounds after dominating the guy. So I think he's going to break Tricoli. I think he's going to absolutely humiliate him, and he's going to get cut from the UFC. That's what happens when you're the only reason why you're in the UFC is because you dated Mackenzie Dern. Granted, he is kind of lucky for that. I am jealous about that. Anyways, yeah. Moving on. We got Iro Baranushki. Is that how he says? Sorry if I've offended any Polish people in here. Versus Ibo Aslan. Now, Baranushki, he has a pretty decent regional scene. He's coming from Poland. I think he's trained with Jan Blachowicz before, and that is a good sign. I really am just going to choose Iwo just because I just don't think Ivan Aslan is good, every single one of his wins in the UFC have aged insanely bad. I mean, Turkalj, I don't think he's done shit since then. Sakara is a fucking bum, and he's 0-4 in the UFC. Ion Kutalaba, he just lost his last fight, and he got destroyed by Ion. And that Billy Alicana performance was so fucking bad, bro. That was the worst fight I've ever seen, and holy fuck. Ebo just, I don't know, he might have just intentionally lost that fight, but I think the odds should be a lot farther apart. Ebo is pretty good. He is pretty good. He has a really good ground game, and one thing I see about with Ibo Aslan a lot is that he is pretty one-dimensional. He's a good striker, but when he's faced with a grappling threat like Elikana or Ion Kutalaba, he freezes up. He doesn't step on the gas. And Iwo Barneski, he's going to look for the KO. Obviously, he's coming off the KO against Muhammad Ali, and not the actual Muhammad Ali, but the Brazilian BJJ guy who was pretty much really hyped up. I think a lot of people were picking him. He was a favorite in that fight, and Berneshki just KOs him in the first round. I mean, that was a crazy fucking fight. And I mean, Berneshki, I feel like he's just going to find that shot on Ibo Aslan. I think Ibo Aslan's just going to be too hesitant on the feet, and when he's hesitant on the feet, he is open to getting chinned. I think he's gonna drop Ibo Aslan, and I could see him getting a submission. Maybe through he'll probably get a ground and pound, or he'll just go lock it up, get on mount, get on Ibo Aslan's back, and try to get that submission. I think Ibo Aslan is just kind of. I think the problem is that he's just so one dimensional that he really can't do anything if he's faced against a well rounded dude. He can do fine against Sakara, who's not really that good, and Turkalj, who's mainly a striker. He's really good when it comes to striker matchups, but if he faces a good grappler, he just doesn't do anything. So I'm going to go with Baraneski by submission in the first round. Next, we got Edson Barboza versus Jalen Turner. Jalen Turner, he retired after losing to Bahamondes in 313. He's now back, 10 events later. And this is probably the shortest retirement I've seen, apart from the John Jones one. I'm going to go with Jalen Turner. I think Jalen Turner is pretty talented. He's a really good striker. He has a really long reach, and he's pretty big for the weight class. And he also has some sneaky power. He can chin somebody with one punch. He can drop somebody. I mean, he wobbled Bobby Green badly, and it was kind of a murder stoppage right there. I don't know what the fuck the ref was doing, but I think since that stoppage, I think that changed him, where he's just now trying to look for fucking one like walk off KOs, and that made him fumble the fight against Renato Moicano. And then the Bahamondes fight was weird too because I think he did he shoot a takedown? I think he shot a takedown, and he just got triangled, and it just felt super easy. And I know Bahamondes is insanely good when it comes to throwing up submissions from bottom, but I don't know. It's just like Jalen Turner. He has always had a weakness on the ground, but he's not facing a striker, and this is a favorable matchup, a very favorable matchup. I'm gonna say this right now. I was right to pick Drakkar Close because I'm gonna. I'm when I watched that Lerone Murphy fight, and I watched it again. He took a lot of damage, and that's why I chose Drakkar Close to beat Edson Barboza. I thought Drakkar Close would break Barboza, and that's exactly what happened. Very dominant round two. Barboza couldn't do enough to win that fight, and a lot of people said it was pretty close. It was pretty close, but I had a Drakkar Close 2-1, and Drakkar Close did really well against Barboza, and I'm going to be honest, if Barboza is losing to Drakkar Close like that, it just shows that he's just taking too much damage. I think he's just a shell of his former self. I mean, look at his face right there. Look. Can I zoom in? Look at his fucking face. I mean, he looks like he's like fucking Two-Face right now. He's taking a shit ton of damage, and he looked really bad in that Lerone Murphy fight. He had a pretty decent first round, but Lerone Murphy just beat the fuck out of him, and I don't think he was not able to recover from that since. He was supposed to fight Steve Garcia. Thank God he didn't, because he would have died. But he's been on such a huge downhill trend, and he hasn't looked good at all. And I think Jalen Turner, albeit his mentality is weak, I do think that he's just really talented. He has the physicality advantage. He has the reach advantage. I mean, he has a 2-inch reach advantage against Barboza. He is tall for the division. He's pretty big, and he has some good power. I do see Jalen Turner getting the KO. I see him getting the KO in the second round. I think he's just going to break Barboza. Simple as that. I think he's just going to be too active on the feet, and I don't think that Barboza just has it anymore in him to make it a really competitive kickboxing fight. He kind of lets these fights go the other way, and he slows down, and he's just not able to get that activity up, and it just shows that's just what happens when you get so much damage. Your body just won't work the same. And Jalen Turner, he's still young, he's taken a huge break, and he's been recovering. He's changed his mindset a bit. He's coming back to the UFC. He's probably going to come back with a refreshed mentality. If he wants to come back, if he wanted to come back, he didn't have to come back. He could have just stayed. But it seems like he is motivated now. He's found a new mentality, and I do like that for Jalen Turner. Unless in the media day or something like that, Jalen Turner just turns out to be a shell of his former self, and he just looks shit, and I'm just like, maybe. But even if he was shit, I just think he's just too talented and too fast of a striker and too rangy for Barboza. So I'm going to go Jalen Turner. I'm going to go Jalen Turner by KO in the second round. Next, we got Marvin Vettori, the one and only Marvin Vettori, against Bruno Ferreira and Fajeda. And Marvin Vettori hasn't looked good at all. He's on a 3-fight losing streak. His last win was Roman Dolidze back 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago. And he arguably lost that fight. And then if you say that Roman Dolidze won that fight, he hasn't won a fight since Paul Costa, and that fight was 5 years ago. He hasn't had a convincing win since then. He's gotten destroyed in almost every single fight, and he was getting outstruck by Roman Dolidze. He got beat the fuck up by Jared Cannonier. Same with Robert Whitaker, and he had the title shot against Izzy where he also got dominated. Then he had a bit of a war with Brendan Allen. Brendan Allen was beasting him up, though. Don't get it twisted. It wasn't some competitive back and forth, insanely close fight. Marvin Allen was winning all those rounds, and he was landing the way better shots. And I think that Marvin Vettori is just on such a huge decline. He looks slower. He's not as fluid. He's not as tricky of a striker. He's not as crafty. And I think that's just due to the fact that I think he's just facing good opposition now. I don't think he's washed. I think he's just been the same. I just think he's just facing good opponents now. And On the feet, he has some decent boxing. He has a good 1-2, but that's really it. His grappling isn't really all to scream home about. He did get some takedowns on Roberson. You know, he has a good wrestling base, but it's just not enough to really threaten a guy like Bruno Ferreira. I'll say this: Bruno Ferreira does have some questionable cardio. He hasn't been the whole 15 minutes. And Marvin Vettori is the king. He has been in a lot of 5 rounders. He's been in a lot of 3 rounders. He has the experience. He has the cardio. So I mean, if Bruno Ferreira doesn't get a finish here and Marvin Vettori puts the pace, we could see Vettori pulling out a win here. But I'm gonna go Bruno Ferreira, and I'm gonna go Bruno Ferreira by KO. I think he's going to chin Marvin Vettori. Marvin Vettori has no head movement. He is pretty plotty. He is pretty easy to counter and land good shots on. And the reason why he's just not been able to get knocked out is because he has a chin of steel. But he's taken a lot of damage. He's a lot more easily cuttable now. His nose literally got broken in the first few seconds of the Allen fight. And Bruno Ferreira hits like a truck. He slept Gregory Rodriguez in the first round. He KO'd Stoltzfus as well. He has a lot of good finishes, a lot of good KOs. He's really good on the ground as well. He has some good submissions. And that Albus Magomedov fight is a bad look. And I think that was just due to the fact Bruno Ferreira just gassed at the end of the day. Like he was going into the third round. He rarely ever goes in the third round. And I think Albus was just less gassed than Bruno Ferreira at the end. That's just what it is. But I think Bruno Ferreira is just gonna come out here, come out looking really good. I think Marvin Vettori is just too easy to figure out on the feet. He has a lot of tape on him, and Bruno Ferreira is definitely going to be studying that tape. And I think Bruno Ferreira will find that shot, and we will see that chin of steel get cracked. If he doesn't get cracked by Ferreira and he just gets beat the fuck up for 3 rounds, then maybe we need to have some uncomfortable discussions about how good Marvin Vettori's chin is. But I'm going to go with Bruno Ferreira, and I'm going to go Bruno Ferreira by KO in the first round. I think he gets it. I think he lands that shot, and I think Vettori gets dropped, and I think the fact is he will get knocked down, and I just don't think he will know what to do. It's just a new feeling to him. You look at what happened to Max Holloway when he was getting rocked. He was feeling it. When you're not chinnable for so long, your body's not used to the idea of being rocked. And Vettori's going to feel it, and I think he's just going to crumble and get KO'd. Next, we're entering the prelims now. We got Nazim Shadikov versus Fares Diam. Now, this is a pretty good fight, and these are against 2 very good prospects. They've looked really impressive. Nazim Shadikov has looked really good. He's been getting a lot of finishes. He had the KO against Mota, very much of a big back and forth war. They were just exchanging one of the best fights I've seen this year. The KO against Ismail Bonfim, Terrence McKinney. He had a draw with Borshev. And, submitted Terrence McKinney. He had the KO doctor stoppage against Elder. And for SCM, man, very good win against Mike Davis. Very good KO against Matt Favola. He had a split decision and a pretty uneventful decisions against Puelas and Herbert. And then, decision over Figlak. I mean, and there's more. He lost to Terrence McKinney as well by submission. I'm going to go Sadikov, but I do think this is going to be a hell of a close fight. I don't see a finish happening. I do think for SCM is too slick on the feet, and Sadikov is going to come in here with a massive reach disadvantage in here. And I think for SCM is just really good on the feet. I think it's going to be back and forth, but I do see Nazim Shadikov just landing the better shots. His body kicks and his leg kicks are pretty good, and against a tall, lanky guy against for SCM, I think they're going to be pretty effective. And I do think that Shadikov's grappling is going to make a definite difference in this fight. I think his grappling is pretty slept on. He has some pretty good submissions and some pretty good takedowns. And for SCM, he's been working on that wrestling too, and he really did show that grappling against Mike Davis, who is a really good grappler as well. I mean, this is a very close fight, but I'm going to go lean towards Shadikov. But I wouldn't be surprised if ZM pulls it off. But I think this is going to be a close fight. And, it could be like a 29-28 split decision. I do think that this is going to be a back and forth kind of fight. And it's just because they're two really, really good prospects who deserve ranked opponents, but they're fighting against each other. I'm assuming the winner of this fight is going to get a ranked opponent next. And if that's the case, man, this is going to be a good fight. I'm going to go with Shadikov by decision, though. I do think that his body kicks and his leg kicks will make the difference in this fight. I do think that he's going to be the one pressing forward. And I do see the judges just giving him the decision just based on like the impact of his shots. But first, Yem is slick on the feet. He is very hard to hit. And he has been working on that grappling, man. So it's going to be a close one. I wouldn't be surprised if Yem won the fight. But, yeah, I'm going to go with Shadikov, bro, by decision, man. Next, we got Macy Barber taking on Karine Silva. Macy Barber is finally returning. She hasn't fought in a long time. Karine Silva is just coming off the win against Dion Barbosa. And also coming off a loss against Bibi Arujo. And, I keep saying and. Macy Barber, man. I do think Macy Barber is going to win this fight. And the reason is because I think Karine Silva is pretty much a pretty easy matchup. Karine Silva looked shit against Arujo, and I think even in her last fight against Barbosa took that fight on short notice, and she arguably won that fight. She had a lot of control time, and I just don't see Karine Silva taking down a Macy Barber. Macy Barber has a really good takedown defense, She was showing really good takedown defense against Andre Lee, and she's a tank. She's a guy. She's tough. She's tough. She's got some power. She's got some decent hands, and one thing I like about Macy Barber is she puts on a pace against people. She's able to put on a good pace, and I think that's just what's going to determine this, because I think Karine Silva's cardio is a major problem. She has good grappling skills, but if she doesn't get those takedowns and she's forced to strike and she's getting pressured heavily, I do see Karine Silva slowing down in the second and third rounds. I even see Macy Barber scoring some of the takedowns for her. I do think Macy Barber could take down Karine Silva. I would prefer she doesn't, just because the submission threat's there. Karine Silva, before the Arujo fight, she was on a mean streak. I think she was like on a huge win streak or something like that, and she was just getting submissions left and right. And I think a lot of people are gonna choose Karine Silva just because of recency. But I do think that Macy Barber's takedown defense is really good. She puts a good pace on fighters, and I don't think that Karine Silva just has the cardio to match that. I honestly, I think what concerns me about picking Barber here is this long layoff. She didn't have a really. She was supposed to fight Rose Namajunas last year for the main event on Denver. She pulls out, hasn't fought, and then she was supposed to fight Erin Blanchfield for somewhere around May in some Apex main event or something. Then she pulls out literally during the walkouts. She had some seizures, some huge health problems. Now she's coming back. She did take a long break, and I kind of like that. I like that she's getting an opponent like Karine Silva. I think this is a favorable matchup for Macy Barber. And I'm going to go with Barber. And you know what? I'm going to go KO by the third round. I do think she's going to break Karine Silva, because that Arujo fight, man, it was a bad look. Arujo was doing really well, and Karine Silva just gassed, and she slowed down a lot. And even against Barbosa was able to land some takedowns of her own. And this was short notice, by the way, and get some control time. And I think Karine Silva was just able to win based on the submission attempts she was getting. But I think Macy Barber has really strong takedown defense. She's pretty strong herself. She's got some decent power. She TKO'd Amanda Ribas, and Amanda Ribas is a tough person, especially when she KO'd him. That was Ribas, who was on a bit of a she was not that washed yet. And her last fight against Caitlin Sermonera, she has a lot of people are gonna say she hasn't fought a lot of good people, but I think that Macy Barber is just a bad matchup. So I'm going to go on Barber by KO. I do think that Barber gets a finish here, but I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to decision. But I'm going to go with Macy Barber by KO in the third round. Next. Now, this is a fight I have been back and forth on. And the reason why I'm on a back and forth is because, when I was researching a lot for this fight, sorry if you can't hear me, but I was researching a lot for this fight, and I was doing a lot of tape studying. And Chris Duncan, that Rebeshki fight, and also the Vucenic fight, he takes a lot of damage. And he's pretty chinny. He has gotten dropped multiple times in his last few fights. He lost to Manuel Torres by submission. And I don't think that... Okay. And I was going to originally choose Duncan for this fight, because I thought, skill for skill, Duncan is the better fighter. But Terrence McKinney is a demon in the first round. He's a very fast striker. He has sneaky power. He's able to get KOs. And I think his grappling has improved a lot. And, he's a kill or be killed kind of fighter. He either gets finished in the first round or he gets KO. He gets a finish in the first round. And he has such an unbelievably fast pace in the first round. He's so good at finding those hands early and being able to initiate exchanges. And it's like watching Pantoja fight, kind of, where the pace is so high in the beginning. He's just on the gas immediately. And I think that's a bad thing for Chris Duncan, who has shown a lot of weaknesses in compared to, he's losing the first round all the time. He is pretty chinny. And I think we're going to see a McKinney first round KO. I'm going to be embarrassed if I get this fucking wrong. I am going on a fucking whim here. Kind of. It's an educated whim. Duncan is the logical pick, but I think that McKinney just knows what to do against Duncan. I don't think McKinney gets himself into a guillotine choke. I don't think McKinney will be that dumb enough to put himself in a situation like that, like we saw with Balagioki and Vucenic. Vucenic just put his head into a fucking guillotine. And same with Balagioki, man. But I think Terrence McKinney is a pretty good grappler to know the dangers that Chris Duncan has when it comes to pulling those submissions. And I do think Terrence McKinney's just too fast for Duncan. I just think he's too fast. I don't know if Duncan makes it out of the first round. Rebeshki did really good in that first round and dropped him. And same thing with Torres. I think Terrence McKinney's just too fast of a starter. I think Chris Duncan is a slow starter kind of guy. He cuts better as the fight goes on. He is tough, but I think Terrence McKinney is just too fast. So, I'm going to go with Terrence McKinney by KO in the first round. Ballsy pick, but I do think that he could get it. Next, we got Grant Dawson versus Manuel Torres, and I was pretty sold on Torres. Then I decided to do some tape studying. I'm picking Grant Dawson. I think Grant Dawson has looked pretty good in his last few fights. A lot of people are picking Manuel Torres to win by KO because of the Bobby Green fight. And I think people are heavily underestimating how much of a good sniper, how much technically good Bobby Green is. Bobby Green has a good right down the middle, and he has a pretty good technicality understanding for an unorthodox stance, And I think the fact is he puts his hands down, and it's very hard to see if Bobby Green's gonna unload that cross. And I think that's just what caught Grant Dawson. He does a bad chin, and the problem is though, Manuel Torres. I think Manuel Torres is too sloppy for Grant Dawson to just not be able to figure it out. I feel like Grant Dawson can time some really good takedowns by Torres blitzing in and trying to find that right hand. Torres is that Nacho fight against Ignacio Bahamondes showed how sloppy Torres is and how much he relies on his power, because you could tell against Nacho he was loading up a lot of right hands, but he was leaving himself plainly open, and Bahamondes was just destroying him, sniping him easily as he was blitzing in. And Torres, he's a monster. He is a monster. When he connects that right hand, he knocks out people. He chinned Jober. He submitted. He chinned Molotov really well with an elbow. I mean, that KO was fucking brutal. He has power, but I think when you give him a technically good opponent like Grant Dawson, who has been training with American Top Team, who's been training with some really good people, and he has looked really good in his last few fights. His striking may not be as polished, but I think it's enough for Torres. If this was like a Bahamondes or something like that, I would have picked Bahamondes by KO. If it was like any other rangy long striker, but I think Torres is just too sloppy, and he's just not technically good. And I think Grant Dawson will be he will definitely step on the gas in the grappling. Don't get it twisted. This is not going to be some Sean Brady, Michael Morales thing. Grant Dawson will grapple in this fight, and I am not confident in Torres' takedown defense. His two of his losses come from submission, and I think his ground game is pretty mid. And I think Grant Dawson is just really, really fucking good on the ground. He has really good submissions. He has some good takedown, ground and pound, and I see a Dawson getting a 29, 28, 30, 27 decision. I think it's going to be a pretty dominant decision. Maybe Torres. Actually, no, I'm going to go just straight 30, 27 decision. I think Grant Dawson's just going to dominate him in the grappling. Take him down, rinse and repeat, take him down again. Torres tries to land that right hand, times a good double leg, takes him down. It's just going to be that type of thing. And Torres, he's the favorite reason. I think he's really good. I think he's pretty good. I think that Bobby Green loss definitely does stain his legacy, but that is his only loss in the UFC. And he's looked pretty good since. He's beat some really quality competition. And I'm not going to doubt somebody who's as technically good as Dawson. Manuel Torres is sloppy, and he hasn't shown a good enough ground game to where I can say, yeah, Torres will be able to defend the takedowns. So I'm going to go with Dawson by decision. Next, we got the one and only, the main card of the century right here. This is a good main card, man. We got a light heavyweight fight. Jan Blachowicz taking on Bogdan Guskov. Jan Blachowicz any fucking day. I am choosing Jan Blachowicz, and I'm choosing him for one simple reason. He is very fucking good. I hate this fucking narrative of people saying that Jan Blachowicz is washed. Because although he's on a losing streak right now, he hasn't had a win in a long time. The Carl Zolberg fight, he arguably won that fight. And I think what makes that fight even more impressive is that he was landing some really good shots on Carl Zolberg, and Carl Zolberg was not able to KO Jan Blachowicz. I think Jan Blachowicz is a tricky striker. He's a hell of a good striker. And his Muay Thai and his leg kicks. I mean, he was giving Alex Pereira so many problems. And when I watched that fight again, I honestly think he could have won that fight pretty fucking easily if he just landed a couple more ground and pound strikes. And it could have gone either way. People don't talk about Jan's performance against Alex Pereira because that has aged insanely well. Every other person has gotten finished by Alex Pereira, but Jan was the only one to actually give Alex so many problems. On Goliath, it was a draw. I thought Jan won that fight. I had a 3-2 Jan when I watched it, and it sucks because a lot of people were brainwashed by Joe Rogan and his retardation to believe that Ankalaev won that fight because he fucking hugged Jan Blachowicz, aghast Jan for the last 2 rounds. But Jan won the first 3 rounds. He was beating the fuck out of Ankalaev's legs, landing some really good combinations. He made Ankalaev a wrestler. And I'm going to be real. If Alex Pereira couldn't make Ankalaev into... actually, no, he did. But Jan literally did make Ankalaev become a wrestler. He was desperate for those takedowns, man. And you look at his losses, too. Like, his legit loss to Glover Teixeira. Glover Teixeira is an insanely good grappler who has really good top mount. And he's really good at finding takedowns and getting pressure. And he's tough as nails, too. Rakic... It was a leg injury KO. I would have loved to see the rematch, but it wasn't really a legit win. His last legit win was Adesanya. But Bogdan Guskov, man. if you want to talk about overhyped, it has to be Guskov. Because, I was watching back on his fights. His Ryan Spann fight, his Elikana fight, and his Oezdemir fight. The Oezdemir fight is just a telltale sign that I think that Guskov is just going to be outmatched, outscaled. Oezdemir was his only good fight. It was his only good opponent. Krylov, chinny, and he was coming off a KO. Like 3 months later, he got slept, and then now 3 months later he's fighting. I mean, that was just a tailor-made matchup. Elikana had his back for almost the whole round, and he just gave himself into a guillotine submission. Ryan Spann was doing really well, taking him down as well, and it wasn't until Guskov was able to find that right shot that wobbled and rocked Ryan Spann bad, and he was able to get the ground and pound. And then the Oezdemir fight, where Oezdemir put on the pressure, Guskov had no answers. Oezdemir hit him really bad, and then he got submitted by Oezdemir. Not a good look. I think Guskov's overrated. The odds shouldn't be this fucking close. It is even odds, bro. It's even odds. That's insane. That's actually fucking insane. Even odds for a fight like this. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how Jan is not a bigger favorite here. He should be a minus 200 favorite easily. This is a very winnable fight. I think Bogdan Guskov is he is kind of a bruiser kind of guy. He looks for that right shot to land, but when he doesn't find that shot, he's not able to do it. I think Jan Blachowicz is really good at pressuring his opponents. He has really good leg kicks that will definitely immobilize Bogdan Guskov a lot. I think Jan is just going to show levels in this fight. And I'm going to go with Jan by getting a 30-27 decision. I think it's going to be a pretty competitive fight, but it's going to be a dominant Jan performance. And do I think Jan should retire after this fight, even if he wins? Maybe. To be honest with you, I don't know how Jan could get a title shot again, considering how stacked the top 5 is with Ulberg and Yuri and Ankalaev. He could probably beat Ulberg in 5. I mean, I don't know. He probably wouldn't beat Ulberg, but he arguably did. And he definitely beat Ankalaev. So maybe that title shot isn't so far in the future. But Jan, even though he's old, even though he hasn't fought in a while, I think that Jan is just too good for Guskov. I'm gonna go with Jan by decision. My fucking roommate's making a lot of noise in this room. I don't know what the fuck that's about. I don't really want to discuss it. Anyways, we got Henry Cejudo versus Peyton Talbot. This is one of the weirdest fights I've seen. And it's so weird in so many fucking levels, bro. Because what the fuck is Peyton Talbot doing? Getting number 10, former double champ, Triple C, Henry Cejudo. What the fuck has he done to deserve that fight? Because I don't know if you guys have like any short-term memory loss or anything, but Peyton Talbot got ragdolled by Raoni Barcelos literally 11 months ago. It was this year. It wasn't that long ago. It was in like 4 years ago where Peyton Talbot was a young guy. It was Peyton Talbot at the height of his career right now. It was literally this year, and he got ragdolled. He barely escaped getting finished, bro. In round 3, Barcelos was beating the fuck out of him. It was a 10-8 round, and he could have got finished if it wasn't for the fucking bell. And now he is getting a guy who's a way better wrestler, who is a way better striker, who is younger, who is not chinny like Barcelos is, who is not as slow as Barcelo, who is literally still in the top echelon when it comes to these bantamweights. I think people need to stop disrespecting Triple C, man, because he had a very competitive fight with Song Yadong where he was landing really good shots. Song Yadong is a very good striker, and he has good power, and Peyton Talbot has no ability to KO Henry Cejudo. I think Henry Cejudo is just too slick on the feet, man. He has good counters. He's really good at countering He has pretty good counters. He has a really tough chin. And, I mean, when was the last time he got KO'd? Demetrius Johnson in 2013. It's been more than 12 years, and he hasn't even gotten KO'd once. He had a very, very close fight with Aljamain Sterling, coming off a huge layoff, 3-year layoff. He was literally retired. He came back. It was his first fight. He got a title shot in the UFC in over 3 years. He had a very, very, very close decision with Aljamain Sterling where he arguably won that fight. Competitive 29-28 decision with Merab Dvalishvili where he rocked Dvalishvili. And he was able to score some controlled time and land a takedown. I think he got a takedown in that fight, right? Did he get a takedown? Yeah, he got a takedown against Merab Dvalishvili as well. Or maybe I think Merab took him down and then he reversed the position. Anyways, he had some control time in the first round. And he was able to rock Merab pretty bad with a check hook. Or was it a check? No, like a left hook, yeah. That competitive fight with Song Yadong, who was a rangier striker, who was really explosive, who has good power, and Cejudo was doing pretty good against him. Yes, he was losing that fight. But I do think that Cejudo was not getting dominated like a lot of people like to say. He was getting dominated. He was trying to escape the eye poke. First of all, he got his eyes fucking gouged out. And after the Aspinall situation, I can confidently say that I was the only motherfucker defending Cejudo. Everyone was calling him a fucking quitter. I'm the fuck guy telling people on my Instagram page, hey bro, he got his fucking eyes gouged out. He can't fucking see. Why the fuck should he continue to fight? And people were making fun of him, calling him a quitter and all that stuff. Like, bro, eye pokes are no fucking. They're not. It's not a joke, man. They're fucking brutal. But enough with the eye pokes. He had a pretty good, decent fight with Song Yadong, and I think Song Yadong's a bad matchup for him. And Cejudo was doing way better than a lot of people were saying he was. He was landing some really good shots in Song Yadong. He was winning that third round before he got his eyes fucking gouged out. And I think it really just comes down to experience. Cejudo has fought the best of the best. He has been in there and had close competitive fights with Aljamain Sterling. He had a very competitive fight with Merab Dvalishvili, who is the champion, who is ragdolling everyone else. And Cejudo was one of the only people who's actually been able to hurt Merab insanely bad on the feet. Cejudo is very, very fucking good. And that's why I'm confused about this matchup, because why is Payton Talbot getting Cejudo? Why is he getting the number 10 guy and a ranked opponent and a former double champ on his resume, potentially? But Ronnie Barcelos, the guy he beat and got 2 wins against Cody Garbrandt and Ricky Simon, he's not getting shit. It's weird fucking matchmaking. It's clear that they're trying to push Talbot up the rankings. They probably want him to win this fight so he can get that fight with O'Malley sometime soon. Make that like a really banger, like Striker's Delight matchup. But I think Cejudo's just going to show levels in this fight. This is going to be a dominant fucking Cejudo win. I think Cejudo's going to come in there. And here's the thing. One thing I like about this fight, too, is that Cejudo has trained with Talbot before. He's not coming here with the fear, like, oh, what is Talbot going to do? Or what is tendencies? How does his power feel? Like, he has trained with Talbot before. He knows what Talbot's tendencies are. And he's a very smart fighter. He makes good game plans. He has really good fight IQ for this sport. And, I mean, most of the time. Except if it comes to Sean O'Malley. But you look at his 3 losses, man. I mean, there were really competitive fights against the best of the best in the division. 2 former champs in Song Yadong, who's literally fighting for what could potentially be a title contenders match with Sean O'Malley. And you look at Payton Talbot, that Ronnie Barcelos fight, Barcelos is beating the fuck out of Talbot. And Talbot I don't think he's going to KO Cejudo. I don't think. And I think Cejudo, if he goes for the wrestling with this fight, he's going to take down Talbot. I don't think that Lima fight really shown me anything that says you can beat a Cejudo. Although it was a very good performance against a dangerous prospect. Felipe Lima, I think he was undefeated, right? Was he? No, he wasn't undefeated, but he was like undefeated in the UFC, I think. And It was a good performance. Felipe Lima was a more dangerous opponent than Ronnie Barcelos, and Talbot did win, and he showed good takedown defense. But there's fucking levels to this. That Ronnie Barcelos fight is still fucking there. You think Talbot's changed that much to where he can beat a Cejudo when he got 30-26 by Ronnie Barcelos? I do think it's going to be pretty competitive, but I see Cejudo getting a decision here. I think he's going to wrestle him. I think he's going to be really good at finding good shots. I think Cejudo. I don't think the size difference is going to be that much of a deal for him. I think Cejudo has fought taller guys before. He has fought tall guys, and he knows Talbot's style. He's trained with Talbot before, and I like that. So I'm gonna go Cejudo by decision, man. You don't want to sleep on these fucking bets, man. This is too high of a jump up. If Ronnie Barcelos was too much for Talbot, Cejudo is going to do him a lot worse. And although I don't see Cejudo finishing Talbot because Talbot has some decent scrambles, I do see him dominating all 3 rounds. Let me get some fucking water. Fucking yapping. Next, we got Brandon Moreno versus Tatsuro Taya. And this is a good fight. This is kind of like a veteran versus upcoming prospect kind of fight. And I'm going to choose Tyra. This was pretty 50-50 for me. And I think this is a pretty good... I think this is a pretty close fight in terms of skill, in terms of matchup-wise. They're both really good. But I really do like Tyra's grappling in this fight. I think Tyra's really good at securing the back. He's very aggressive when it comes to trying to find the back. And, after the Asu versus Perez fight, Perez win is aging insanely well because Tyra was able to get Perez's back easily, something that Asu couldn't really do. Moreno, on the other hand, man, he's good. He has beaten some people. He had a dominant win against Amir Albazi, albeit it was a shit version of Amir Albazi. Then he had a very competitive fight with Steve Erceg, and I didn't like that. I didn't like how he beat Steve Erceg. There were a lot of rounds where Steve Erceg was able to win, and Brandon Moreno was making it too close. And I mean, Steve Erceg is good, but he's just not on Tyra's level. I think Tyra is a bad matchup. And one thing I like about Tyra in this fight too is that his footwork is pretty decent. Moreno is a pretty low active striker. He's not as active on the feet. And another thing too, it's like his boxing combinations are good, but you kind of just need to bring that fight to him. I think that Tyra lost to Royval's agent insanely well because he had a very competitive fight, very close fight with Royval. And I think Royval is just a bad matchup because Royval does have the hands. He does pepper that jab a lot in it. And, he's very active on the feet. But Moreno's kind of the opposite. He's very defensive. He's very much of a counter striker. And Tyra is really good at moving side to side. He has some good footwork. He's really good calf kicks. And I think that really works well against the boxing heavy style of Moreno. And I think Tyra is he's good, man. He's fucking good. And he's definitely going to be fighting for the title if he wins this fight. I mean, let's be honest here. The UFC is going to want Tyra to win this fight. They like Moreno. Mexicans got that DEI, but the UFC are fucking creaming themselves seeing a Japanese superstar like Tyra. They just fumbled their opportunity to Kai Sakura. Tyra's getting up there in the rankings, so that if Tyra wins this fight, he's getting the title shot next. And I'd love to see that. I'd love to see Pantoja versus Tyra. That would be a very entertaining fight. But I do think Tyra's really good. Dominant win against Young Sung Park. Granted, HSB's not that good. And he did lose to Bruno Silva, not a good look. But he looked really dominant. He dropped HSP. He was able to secure the back very fucking easily and just got the submission in round 2. Tatsuro Tyra's grappling is insanely good. And I think Moreno is just not who he used to be. There is a lot of... I do think that since the Figueiredo fights, he hasn't looked that good. Royval he lost to. Very competitive. Could have gone either way. It was a very close fight. Same with Pantoja. Could have gone either way. But then Amir Albazi, very good win. That was probably one of his best looking wins in a while. But that Steve Erceg fight looked really bad because it was too close for a guy like Moreno. And that was Steve Erceg on short notice, by the way. He was on there for 2 weeks' notice. Moreno was supposed to fight on that card like 2 weeks before. And then Steve Erceg came on. He was supposed to fight someone else. I think he was supposed to fight Alex Perez or something. Or Asu Amabayev. No, he was supposed to fight Asu Amabayev. And then what happened was he fought Brandon Moreno for the main event of Mexico City. And then Asu Amabayev fought Manel Kape after Royval pulled out of their fight. It's fucking everywhere, but flyweight's fucking weird. But I'm gonna go with Tyra, man. I think he's gonna be able to control Moreno, get the back pretty easily. I don't see Moreno really piecing up Tyra like Royval does, just because he is pretty inactive when it comes to the feet. I think Tyra's footwork and movement and his leg kicks will make it hard for Moreno to get started and be able to land that overhand right. And although Moreno's jab is pretty good and Tyra has shown that like his head movement isn't the best, I'm gonna have to go with the younger guy. I think Tyra is just he's too fresh. He's fresh. He has already fought a really good opponent like Royval. He's learned a lot since that loss. He's now getting another test. And one thing I've noticed is that when a lot of these prospects get these tests where they fought a good opponent already and then they're fighting another dangerous opponent, they learn a lot, they improve. And I see the same thing with Tyra. I think Tyra's improved. He's not that same guy who fought Royval. So I think he beats Moreno. So I'm going to go with Tyra by decision. Next, we got the first title fight on the card. We got Alexandre Pantoja versus Joshua Van. Man, this fight's so fucking good. Let me get a drink. I'm like fucking destroyed. My vocal cords. Fucking thing scared me. I don't know what the fuck happened. Oh, man. Oh, man, I can't fucking wait, bro. This fight is so fucking good, man. I haven't been this hyped for a flyweight fight in a while. This is a fight I am so fucking hyped for. And if you know me, if you follow my Instagram, you know I've been high on Joshua Van. I've been rooting for Joshua Van. I've said I'm picking Joshua Van to win this fight. But I'm going to shock you guys. I'm not picking Joshua Van to win this fight. I don't think that Joshua Van is ready. I don't think he is. Joshua Van is really good. He's a really good striker, and he has beat Royval. Royval is a pretty good opponent to have on your resume. But I think the problem is that when you put a guy like Van, who's literally was barely ranked like a few months before, and now he's going to fight for the title against Pantoja. There is really levels to this shit. The experience fucking matters. This is Joshua Van's first 5-rounder. He hasn't fought anybody with the pace and the well-rounded skills like Pantoja has. Pantoja is getting better and better each fight. And people will say, oh, Pantoja's getting old. He's 35. Here's the thing. I don't think the age matters in this fight. I think Pantoja's disapproving these fucking age things, you know? He's not fucking slowing down at all. He's looked more dominant. He's looked better every single fight. And Joshua Van, man, I think this is kind of one of those matchups where Joshua Van, I think he's getting fed to the sharks too early. I wish Joshua Van fought one more dude before fighting Pantoja. Like 5-round main event title eliminator against like Manel Kape. And then Pantoja would fight somebody else. Joshua Van is getting fed way too fucking early. And I know what the UFC trying to do with this. They want Joshua Van to be champion. But Pantoja is too dominant and he's too fucking good. He's too well-rounded. And you know what? I shit on Pantoja's striking and I said he is very flawed. I don't think he's that flawed anymore. I look at his old fights. I look at his recent fight with Kai Kara-France, who is a pretty good striker and very skilled as well. Pantoja showed way better striking. And I think it just really comes down to the fact I think Pantoja's striking is slept on. He has power. He dropped Moreno. He was having a competitive war with Figgy. He was getting pieced up, but he's a tough dude. And Joshua Van, the problem with him is that he is very defensively open, and I think that's just because of experience. He's just not experienced enough, you know? He's not even in his prime yet, because he hasn't even entered his prime. I think this is too early. This is too early for Joshua Van. Let me get some water, bro. My fucking vocal cords are going overtime, bro. Man, Pantoja, man. No, I don't see anybody in this division beating Pantoja because one thing about Pantoja that he has, he's very well-rounded. He can strike, he can land some good, powerful hits, he can drop people, he has very good combinations. One thing I really like about him is that he lands with jab two, and then he gets with the leg kicks. He has a very Jose Aldo Muay Thai style-esque fight where he lands these combinations and he pressures, and he changed the takedowns after it. He sets a high pace early. Joshua Van doesn't. Joshua Van is very slow in the first rounds. He's not as active. He tends to lose the first rounds. And you can't do that against a guy like Pantoja, who is going to be fast paced in the first round. He's going to be coming straight at you. And I think Joshua Van is just too nonchalant for this shit, man. I want him to win. I want him to win so fucking bad, but I don't think he does. And I'm tired of being delusioned and thinking he's going to beat up Pantoja. He probably won't. He probably will get submitted. He hasn't faced a grappler as good as Pantoja. If he faced like a Tyra or something and he beat Tyra, then I would have picked Joshua Van to win. But the best grappler he's faced is Cody Durden and Ray Saruria. Ray Saruria is a pretty decent wrestler. Cody Durden has no BJJ at all. And now you got a good wrestler, an elite wrestler, and an elite BJJ and submission artist. This is too much of a jump in competition. And granted, he beat Royval. Royval was the number one contender, but it was a back and forth war. And I think Royval is very hittable, you know. And even Pantoja was doing really well on the feet as well against Royval. You know, he was able to control Royval. And one thing, and I'm going to say this, it is insanely hard to control Royval like how Pantoja did in the rematch, you know. He submitted Royval and then he controlled him pretty easily in the rematch as well. It's very hard to control Royval, as we saw with Tyra. Tyra was able to get some takedowns of Royval, but Royval is a good scrambler. And he has really good defensive anti-grappling. I don't think Joshua Van has that. I think he has okay takedown defense, but he hasn't tested it. And the problem is he just hasn't been tested. He hasn't fought anybody for like in the 5-round pace. He hasn't fought anybody like Pantoja. Pantoja is just different, man. He's a different breed. And one thing I love about Pantoja, he always improves. He's always training. He isn't kind of like, he's not peaked yet. I don't think he's peaked. I think he's getting better and better each fight. And it's so funny because he's 35 years old and it seems like he's old and it's like he's like exiting his prime. He's getting better. Every single fight, he's showing something new. He's showing better technique. He's showing better fight IQ and all these types of things, man. And people are going to talk about the Erceg fight. And I said that because he lost to Erceg, he could lose Joshua Van. People forget, man. Steve Erceg's scrambling is really fucking good. If you watch Steve Erceg's regional fights, you will see what I'm talking about, because Steve Erceg is a very good grappler for a striker. He's more a striker now, but there's a reason why Pantoja wasn't able to hold on to Steve Erceg. Like, he was able to hold on to Royval and Moreno and Cara France, you know? Because Steve Erceg has really good scrambling ability, and he makes it hard for guys to grab his back, you know? And he has some good defensive wrestling, and he's a pretty tall, big dude. Joshua Van isn't a tall, big dude. I think he's shorter than Pantoja. I think Pantoja is bigger. And Pantoja has the reach advantage. He has a speed advantage, in my opinion. I think Joshua Van has fast hands, but I think Pantoja is a faster striker. I think Pantoja has good power as well. And you got to look at it this way. It's the fucking confidence Pantoja has. Pantoja isn't scared. He is confident he wins. He's training. He knows he's the fucking champ. He knows he's the GOAT. He knows he owns these guys, bro. And as much as I love this fight, this is going to be a competitive-ass fight. I see Pantoja getting submission. And I see him getting a third-round submission, man. I think at some point, Joshua Van will just not be able to defend getting the back. And I see Joshua Van getting placed in a body triangle. And I'm gonna predict this right now. You will see him in a body triangle. I will predict this right now. Joshua Van will have no idea what's happening. he will look very fucking nervous. And then when you look nervous like that and you haven't been in these situations and you haven't been in a body triangle like Pantoja's, you know, you're gonna get submitted. Simple as that. We saw that with Kai France. Kai France has some defensive grappling. He has good defensive grappling, but there's a difference between the grappling of other guys like Albazi compared to Pantoja. There's a fucking difference. Pantoja is an elite grappler. He is levels above this division. And I'm going to say this, he is levels above this division. He was able to hold Moreno pretty fucking easily. And Moreno has some decent scramblers. He has some very good scrambles. Same with Royval, decent, very good scrambles. But he was able to hold him down pretty easily and even submitted him in the first fight. Kyle Friend, very good defensive grappler, submitted him. Kara Socorro, I mean, that was not a good win. But Ursek, too, he was still able to control him for some minutes as well and win some rounds based on control time. And Ursek is a very good scrambler as well. And one thing I noticed is that he's able to control even guys who know what to do on the ground against a guy like Pantoja. Joshua Van doesn't. He hasn't faced anyone as good as Pantoja. And I'm going to be honest with you, he is probably not going to be as well versed in BJJ. He has only started training for 7 years. There's experience, man. When Pantoja was making his pro career, but Joshua Van was 5 years old. There's fucking levels to this shit. And I'm tired of being disillusioned and saying Joshua Van will win because I like Joshua Van, but I'm not letting bias fucking rule my picks like I did for UFC 322. Pantoja is winning this fight by submission. I think he's just going to get that body triangle. I think Joshua Van's going to put a hell of a fight, though. I think he's going to be landing some good combinations. I think Pantoja's going to be trying to figure out Joshua Van. And we're going to see Pantoja show off the striking. We can see Joshua Van get some stung with some really good shots. As Pantoja blitzes in, Joshua Van defends a couple takedowns in the first round. And Joshua Van will have some confidence. But then Pantoja shows the levels. I think he's going to be able to find a way to get to the back. I see him... You know what? I see him just jumping on Joshua Van's back while he's standing. And then Joshua Van will get submitted standing up. I think it's going to be a standing submission for Pantoja. Joshua Van has some good takedown defense, but he hasn't faced the back-taking skills that Pantoja has. He just hasn't been in situations like that where he's gotten his back taken. You know, Saruria and Cody Durden are good wrestlers, but they're not BJJ guys. They're not submission specialists. They're not guys with a good back take and a good body triangle and really good pressure and really good, and they stick to you like glue. They just don't have that. And that's the only grapplers Joshua Van has ever faced. Then you got to look at the the Kevin Borjas fight, where Borjas has pretty much just a 1-2, and he was still able to drop Van. And then you look at the Charles Johnson fight. Joshua Van does leave himself open to a lot of good strikes, and he does have a questionable chin. This is a very bad fight for Joshua Van, and I want him to win. I want him to prove me wrong. I want him to shock the world and make me look retarded that I changed my pick from Van to Pantoja. But I think Pantoja is just too fucking good. He's too good for these guys. Nobody is beating him at flyweight. I don't think... Maybe Tyra has a chance, but I think maybe Kyogi Horiguchi probably has the best chance. I think Horiguchi has the best chance just because he knows how Pantoja fights, and he's really well-rounded too. But I don't see Pantoja losing to anybody in 125 ever. I think he's going to retire as champion, and he's going to be super dominant. And I think Joshua Van is just being fed too early. I think this is just too early for him. So I'm going to go with Pantoja, man. Pantoja by third round sub. I do think this is going to be a standing rear naked choke where he gets on Joshua Van's back and he's able to sink the hooks in. And I think he's going to get that choke somehow. Third round submission. We could see a late second round submission as well. But I do think he will find the back of Joshua Van. And I think Joshua Van will just be clueless. Not any fault of his own. It's a too early thing, you know. This is not John Jones where he got fucking Shogun Hura. Yeah, this is a fucking GOAT. This is not Shogun, bro. Shogun is not the fucking GOAT of light heavyweight. This is the GOAT of flyweight. This is the potential GOAT. And when you're feeding a guy like Joshua Van who literally just got here. 2 years ago, he wasn't even in the UFC, bro. And bro, I remember seeing the stat when Pantoja became champ, Joshua Van was debuting. I mean, that's fucking insane. Joshua Van just got here. Pantoja's been through it all. He's fought everybody already. He's fought Moreno, Royval, he's Carl France. He's fought everybody. And, oh yeah, another thing too. He outstruck Manel Kopp. He out-kickboxed Manel Kopp for 3 rounds. He couldn't take down Manel Kopp, but he outstruck him. People forget about that performance because that has aged insanely well, considering how good of a striker Manel Kopp is. There's levels to this shit, man. It sucks. I like Joshua Van, but I am getting so many voice cracks because my vocal cords are kind of fucked up. But yeah, Pantoja by 3rd round sub. Too early. Just too early for Joshua Van. Next, for the main event, we got Merab Dvalishvili versus Piotr Yan. No mercy, Yan. He's getting the rematch that he's always wanted against Merab. Merab, he's cleared the division already. He's already beat everybody. He's just farming rematches now, and what else can he do? The first fight was pretty one-sided, and I'm going to say something here. I think it's going to be one-sided again. I think Peter Yan is one of those guys that is very much a tailor-made matchup for Merab. He relies on the long guard and the high guard, and those things leave your hips open. But I do think we're going to see a really good fucking fight. This is still going to be very fucking competitive, and I think Peter Yan is going to know to be able to counter Merab. And one thing I've noticed too, Merab is very weak when it comes to the check hooks and all that stuff, the left hooks, like Amal Marias and Henry Cejudo were able to land. And Peter Yan, he does really well countering. We could see a very competitive fight. But I'm going Merab Dvalishvili by decision. The odds shouldn't be this close, though. I mean, this far, though. I think it should be like a minus 250. I'd give Merab minus 250. It is still good. You should not be a minus 500 against Yan. I think a lot of people share my opinion on that. You should not be a minus 500 against Yan. This is the best Yan we've seen yet. And this is also the best Merab we've seen yet. And he's beat everybody else. He's just even when he wins this fight, he's just going to fight Umar again in March. So literally, it's just going to be rematches. Do I like that for the division? No, but Merab is going to be literally speedrunning GOAT status at this point. And I think it's still going to be a pretty competitive fight, but I'm going to go with 50-45 Merab Dvalishvili decision again. 190 Peter Yan. But it's still going to be very competitive. But I do see Merab taking rounds by landing good strikes and chaining takedowns. That's one thing Peter Yan struggles with. When you pressure him and you don't give him the space, when you back him up, he doesn't counter effectively. He counters. He's really good when he's the one pressuring and he's the one, walking forward. That he does really well. But when you back him up, he relies on the high guard a lot. And I see Merab kind of landing some good punches, goes into high guard. Merab shoots for a takedown. Peter Yan tries to defend, but then Merab, he just tries to go for a hip toss. I think he just gets a takedown, and then Peter Yan gets up. I think it's going to be a competitive fight. It's probably going to be more competitive than the first one, but it's still going to be a landslide decision. It's going to be a 50-45, but 49-46 in there would probably be possible as well. I think Peter Yan could show some adjustments, but I don't think it's enough. I don't think a few simple adjustments is enough to beat Merab. In my opinion, I don't think Peter Yan's ever going to beat Merab. Simple as that. Peter Yan's a very tailor-made matchup. He relies on the high guard. He's pretty easy to back up, and he's very bad when it comes to the back foot and all that stuff. And Merab is always constantly pressuring. He's always making you guess. Is he going to shoot, or is he going to land an overhand, or is he going to try to box you? He's always keeping you guessing. And we saw that work so well on Peter Yan, and I think it's going to happen again. I think Peter Yan is still going to be... Maybe Peter Yan is going to be a lot more confident, and he'll land some good shots in round one. And Merab's going to be like, oh, shit, okay, maybe Peter Yan is not going to be as easy as last time. But then at some point, Peter Yan is just going to be back to the same thing that happened in the first fight. Merab is just too good right now. And one thing I like about this fight, too, is that Merab has improved his striking so much. That he's able to almost TKO Corey on the feet. It's going to be a beatdown again. I don't see Peter Yan really actually hurting Merab in this fight. To be honest, I don't see a knockout happening. Like, if Peter Yan lands a good shot on Merab, maybe Merab will get rocked a bit, but I don't think Merab is that fragile. Like, he is really fucking durable. He has a granite chin. But I don't see Merab getting a finish in here just because Peter Yan also got a good granite chin as well. He's pretty tough. He's very hard to submit. And he's very defensively responsible. And he has a really good high guard. And it's hard to land good shots on him. So I think it's going to be a competitive. I think it's going to be a very much like a back and forth pace fight. Very high pace. Very entertaining. A lot of shit's happening. Like how Pantoja fights are. It's going to be like this again. But it's going to be another 50-45 Merab Dvalishvili decision. It's really one of those fights where you just know who the winner is, but maybe something might happen. Who knows? But I'm gonna go Merab by 50-45 decision. Anyways, that's all for this UFC card. My vocal cords are fucking destroyed. I'm like I'm voice cracked right now. I'm like voice cracking everywhere, man. I think it's time for me to chill and call it a night. And I don't know what the fuck is up with the website. It is clearly very much lagging. Wow. $1 billion company, by the way. Anyways, I'll see you in the next one.